But before we start this video proper, I want to tell you right from the start, I do not edit history out of history. I'm going to tell you as it was. If you don't like it, and you want an edited version of history, please do not watch this video. For the rest of you, like most of us, you'll probably enjoy it. And there's some real good bits of history, and I was quite surprised the amount of history that is at Atherstone. So without further delay, let's get into the main part of the video.
I'm sat on the lock here. That's the top lock at Atherstone at the moment. And in the distance up over there, that is the old hat factory. Today's video is going to incorporate that, because today's video is about some of the history of Atherstone. It's basically sort of the Industrial Revolution sort of time onwards. What it's about is some of the industrial aspects that Atherstone was famous for. The hat factory being one of them,
and the slipper factory being the other.
As we look down here, down the locks, obviously the Coventry Canal played a big part of this, because it was a way of getting goods from Atherstone to the coast or wherever things were going. Atherstone became a town in 1246 when Henry III granted the charter to hold a weekly market to the monks of Beck's Abbey. Of course, that then made it a market town, and under the old
feudal law, I believe, and I think I'm correct in saying this, that once you were granted a market, a village could then become known as a town, hence known as market towns. I also just want to add one other little small bit in there. Back in 1246, when it was granted its market status, which I believe made it a market town, it was not known as Atherstone back then. It was known as Aderestone. I'll put the spelling below in the caption. And I've actually heard it pronounced that way by some of the locals, so perhaps that is still the correct pronunciation. I'm not sure. Well, I must apologise for the next few sections or clips of this video. There's an awful lot of road noise. For some reason, they wouldn't let me close the road to film. I have no idea why.
We find me now standing on top of the canal bridge, looking at the old hat factory. One of the things that Atherstone was famous for, and the surrounding areas, was hatting, what was known as milliners.
Well, this is now where perhaps the controversial part of this video will come in. It's about slavery, so if you don't like anything about slavery, please skip this part of the video. It runs for about 30 seconds.
The hat factory was built in 1828, and it was famous for its billycock hat, which was a hat basically for slaves. So a lot of its money was made from the slave trade in the early days. Although in the UK in 1807 slaves were abolished and was no more, of course slaving did carry on around the world. And in actual fact, it wasn't until 1833 that the Slavery Abolition Act was actually passed in Parliament. This factory was built and owned by Wilson and Stafford from 1828 to 1999. That's when it closed, where hats were no more. Although the billycock hat was its famous hat, which it basically made its money from in the early days, it did make other different hats of various different designs, and also I believe it made some garments as well, but I can't find much on that. Apparently the billycock hat name came from the grandfather of the owners of the company. His name was William, hence Billy, and cock was a name for the rim of the hat, hence the billycock hat. Well, this is what I guess is the front side of the hat factory on Coles Hill Road. Once again, I'm standing on top of the canal bridge filming this. The building today is completely unsafe, although back in 2008 it was planned to convert it into flats or apartments. That certainly is not going to happen today. Unfortunately today, this only has one life left, and that has been demolished, and perhaps the bricks and some of the historical parts can be reclaimed and used in repair projects or making other things look old. The Maid of the Mill pub here, I'm assuming, must have been a big part of the workers' after work recreational. And if we look here on this section of the building, you can see that it's actually fallen down, and that actually fell into the road a few years ago and blocked the road up for a period of time. There's a broken window here. Let's see what we can see inside. I don't have a light with me, so I'm hoping, yes it has, the camera is picking up enough light to show you a little bit of what's left. Obviously it is very derelict. It's definitely dangerous. I do not recommend anybody going inside the building. In fact, standing on the outside is probably dangerous. Here is another view inside through another broken window. As I say, I think the camera's just about picking up enough light to show you what it's like inside.
Well, I found that quite amazing actually, how much the camera actually picked up there. Obviously the light sensitivity of the camera is darn sight better than my eyes, because to me, looking in there, I could hardly see a thing. So well done, camera. So that's the end of this part of the video anyway. That is the hat factory. Now we're going to go on to the slipper factory. I'm saying that a little bit hesitantly because originally it was not slippers, it was actually socks. But let's get on towards that building, and we'll talk about more of it when we get there.
I've now moved down and I'm standing on the railway bridge, and in the distance there we can see an old chimney. Well, that's our next point of call we're going to. This building is still actually in use. Well, it's known as the slipper factory, but making slippers was not what meant it famous. It was actually made famous for making socks for wearing inside Wellington boots. Let's go down there now, have a little walk down to the town and see what we can find left of the building. Well, I'm now down in the town, and there you can see the chimney and the building in front of it, some of which the windows there are all boarded up, which is now the factory shop outlet. That was once the building in question. Let's see what little bit of history we can find out about it. Let's get a little closer. So here we have it. What is known as the old slipper factory. Obviously doors which went into the courtyard probably of the factory. As we come along, there's another alleyway there, which obviously more doors going in where it says deliveries now to the original factory shop. This part of the building here looks a lot older, so I'm guessing that was the original part of the building. I'm not quite sure on the exact date they started making socks. All I can find out was it was the late 1800s. And it carried on. It was sold in 1989, but it closed very shortly thereafter. I've come now around to the side of the building. This is all fenced off. And it's quite obvious that there was other buildings attached at one point in time. Whether that was all part of the slipper factory, I don't know. But what I can tell you now, that this is the bus terminus for Atherstone. And it's a small little car park here. And across there is where you would come to catch the bus. It's a Sunday today, so there's not many buses around, if any.
Well, I take it all back. As I was just leaving this area, look, a bus came along.
Well, I had to stop here quick and get a photograph of this when I walked past this building because of the sign I saw here. I guess this once was a Mason's Lodge, not Wendy Morton's Academy of Dance.
Well, after mentioning about the market and the marketplace and how the town came about, I thought I'd walk down to the market square. With there being so much history here at Atherstone, I think I will probably come back at another time and elaborate a little bit more on some of these items like the church and some of these real old pubs here, and try and get a bit more of a feel for the place. There's so much history going on, I think it'd be worth another visit. But today was basically about the two main factories that were going on here back in the Victorian times, both of which of course were steam driven.
I'm not sure if this was the original location of the market, but this is now Market Square, and I'm standing basically in Market Street. Why I'm saying that, it's possibly was the original location, but on this rectangle now, which has these paving slabs on, if you look at a photograph of here in the 1960s, there's actually houses standing on this rectangle plot of land. So it's obviously either was originally the market, then wasn't, and now it's been reinstated. I'm not sure.
Well, I'm going to be leaving it there for today at Atherstone. On my way back to the canal, back to my boat, I came across this coffee shop that you're going to see at the end of this little clip of me rabbiting on again. Well, this is going to be sort of the new format for the channel for the time being, while I'm not particularly moving the boat very far. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm going to try and get a bit more into doing these history sort of videos. They're all sort of canal related because they're all going to be recorded close to the canal, and as in this one, both the hat factory and the slipper factory, I believe, used the canal for exporting their goods out of the town. When I say exporting, I believe the hats, or most of the hats back in the early 1800s, went overseas. An awful lot of them, I believe, went to America. Well, in the next video, well, I hope it will be the next video anyway, I'm going to be going a little ways down the canal to what is now Manchester. I'll put the old name at the bottom. Manchester was once an old Roman settlement. So I'm hoping to find something there that is Roman. And here at Atherstone, the A5 runs right through it. Well, the A5, of course, is what this modern name is, and the Roman name for it was Watling Street. Yes, Atherstone lies on Watling Street, and of course, Manchester, just down the road, was also just off of Watling Street. So I'm hoping to find something there and bring you the next episode in this sort of off the cut come history more episodes from Manchester. Well, that's the end of this video, besides the little bit at the end here. So, of course, a big thank you goes out to all my viewers, subscribers. I'm sorry, I'm all bunged up and I'm struggling to talk here right now. And, of course, to my Patreon, PayPal, Super Thanks supporters, channel members, everybody, of course, that helps the channel in every which you do. It really does go a long way to keeping me going, and it has definitely been keeping me going for the last few months. Of course, that just leaves me to say thank you very much for watching. Trevor out, but do stay for the end.
Further clues for this coffee lounge, what this town was famous for. We have the hat there, of course. The hat and slipper. And there's the slippers. I'm not quite sure if either the picture of the hat or the slippers is actually any of the original designs, but I'm assuming it's an artist's impression.